Welcome everybody to the Opportunity Junction Client Impact Webinar. My name is Alissa Friedman and I am the CEO of Opportunity Junction, as Alexis just mentioned. Today I'm going to be filling you in on how COVID-19 is affecting the hard-working job seekers and alumni we serve, and letting you know how your support has enabled us to respond. So I think you guys all know this, but at Opportunity Junction, we help motivated Contra Costa job seekers gain the skills and confidence that they need to launch careers so that they can support their families. We provide training, support, work experience, employer placement assistance, and long-term alumni services. We're best known for our administrative careers training program, which we've been running since 2000, and we also partner to offer entry-level healthcare career training, as well as career counseling and placement assistance. When the pandemic hit and forced us into the shelter in place, the impact on our current clients was immediate. Some dropped out of training because of a lack of childcare or because of broadband issues. Household members lost hours working, creating unexpected financial needs. So to get a sense of the scale and scope of the need among our community of job seekers and alumni, we launched surveys in early April and in mid-May, and the results are combined here. As you can see, 82% of the respondents were alumni, with 18% being current participants. And the demographics of gender, race, and ethnicity broadly match those of our core employment program participants. And I'll let you take a look at that just for a little bit longer before I go off. We do tend to have more women in our programs. That might be a little bit more than the overall percentage. And then roughly the race and ethnicity breakdown of respondents is pretty similar to our usual core employment. And we sent 813 surveys and had 258 responses. So one of our key questions was on the impact of the pandemic on employment. And so there were 4 different needs that we asked about. One was, did you lose your job? Did you lose hours? That's the second one. And then also, did you have a household member who lost a job or a household member who lost hours? And although the scales on these 2 graphs are slightly different, you can see, if you look, that the pandemic, first of all, had a substantial impact on both our direct alumni and clients, and then also on their household members. And then finally, the most significant loss was an actual layoff of our current alumni or clients, but usually that's alumni because our clients are typically working towards getting into employment. And that may be because the alumni that we surveyed went back to those who were in our 18-month follow-up window, plus those who checked in with us during that 18-month follow-up window. And so they may have been more precariously attached to employment than our alumni population at large, or than the population at large. So when you combine those 4 different employment needs, fully 77% of the respondents reported one or more of those category of employment impacts. And so it's no surprise that when your employment and income is impacted in that way, that your financial security would erode, whether just you're concerned about it or having actual problems with that. And that's even if you've got pandemic unemployment insurance, there's still the insecurity of not having that job that you know that you are earning a regular paycheck from. So more than half of the people we surveyed reported insecurity about their housing situation, and that more than half was 52%, I guess you can see that right there. And 43% were concerned about the availability or the cost of food. The final need in our big 4 was technology. In order to participate fully in remote work or remote training or remote school for the kids, a person needs, first of all, a computer that they can monopolize during the day, that you don't have to keep sharing back and forth. Second of all, an operating webcam. And then third, broadband service that can support a teleconference, a Zoom meeting like we're having here today. So only 57% of respondents reported that they had all three of those things. And I'll break that down a little bit more on the next slide. In the technology needs category, 81% of our respondents reported that they did have access to a computer. That, of course, means that there are 19% who don't. But access to a webcam was substantially lower at 69%. And then finally, access to broadband, which may or may not overlap with those, is 76%. And so what you end up with is only 57% who had all three of those items that you need in order to participate in remote work and remote training. So if this were like a video, this is where I would cue the hopeful music. We're so grateful to have received grants from Tipping Point Community, the East Bay Community Foundation, San Francisco Foundation, the Justice Foundation, Travis Credit Union Foundation, the Community Health Fund, Impact 100 East Bay, and many individual donors to allow us to respond to the impacts of COVID-19. The ways that we responded, the first thing was we had classes of trainees in our job training classes. We had career counseling clients who were job seeking. And so our first priority was to immediately pivot to virtual program delivery. And the grants that we received from those funders enabled us to purchase and distribute computers that we needed in order to offer those online training programs. We already had student loaner laptops that we distributed on March 12th to class 61 of our administrative careers training program, thanks to a grant from Tipping Point Community. And we received a new grant from them for computers for class 62, which is the next administrative career training program, and also Chromebooks for our next certified nursing assistant program. We started delivering the programs via Zoom. Our internships also became virtual. Our graduates were doing work experience over the internet, and we've still been helping people get jobs. We've added unemployment navigation, and we even had like a virtual graduation ceremony for our administrative careers folks, and then also a drive-by as part of that. But the support that we received also allowed us to purchase laptops for our staff members. And then after all of the laptops were distributed, we finally got mobile hotspots. Those have been a little harder to get a hold of, but we have been able to distribute those both to staff members who needed them and also to participants in our training programs. Another thing that we were able to do in response to the shelter in place, when we realized that we would need to recruit remotely for our June 1st administrative careers training program, we really took a hard look at what kinds of questions we were asking people in the application process, how are our systems working, and how might we make that friendlier to people who were going to be reaching out to us online, and who we were reaching out to online. We purchased DocuSign for some of the enrollment paperwork. We streamlined the application questions, and our data analyst, Nolan, who's on this call, developed an online application that feeds directly into our Salesforce database. These improvements will outlast the pandemic. And then finally, we distributed direct relief assistance to current program participants and alumni who were in need because of the impact of the pandemic. And Heidi's just one of the many who received assistance from us because of a particular situation that was caused by COVID-19 for herself. Altogether, we have been very pleased to have COVID relief dollars spent on textbooks, computers, participant support in the amount of more than $75,000. And now what I'd like to do is, besides thanking you, after that introduction, what I'd like to do is stop my share so that I can introduce some of our staff members who are ready to answer questions from all of you. I'm just going to look at how things look on my screen here. We've got Sean Samuels, who's our business service manager. He works with our employers, so that's his area of expertise. Yeah. We've got Elena Chisholm, who is our computer skills instructor, who can talk with you about how she pivoted to online computer skills instruction. We've got Michelle Wade, who's in charge of that program, the Administrative Careers Training Program, our lead program manager. Let's see, we've got our other program manager is Patty Zavala. Another one of our program managers, Patty Zavala, is here. She works with our career counseling and placement assistance clients. We've got Brianna Robinson, who is our vice president of programs. And let's see, who else did I prep for questions here? I don't think that I prepped anybody else for questions, but if there are questions that our other staff members can answer, we can distribute those. But then, of course, also Alexis Bond, who is our director of development and who's been monitoring the chat and who will monitor the chat during this period for any questions that any of you have to ask about the response, the needs, and the support that we've received.
Thank you so much, Alissa, and thank you to our staff who have been willing to answer some questions that have come in ahead of time. But in the meantime, as they're answering these questions, please feel free to leave your questions in the chat box, and we will get to those if they haven't already been answered as soon as we get through a couple of these. So first of all, I'm going to ask Brianna, what's the level of need now compared to when the pandemic first hit for our participants and alumni?
Thanks, Alexis. It's always changing and hard for us to identify exactly what the current need is with the change in unemployment and childcare issues around schooling. We have another survey scheduled to go out next week or the week after to try to get a better assessment of what the current need is. And we're sending that in partnership with some other job training program providers, Job Train and Jewish Vocational Services, JVS.
Great, thank you, Brianna. And Sean, I'd like to ask you a question. How have you been helping our interns get jobs with employer partners during the pandemic? Are they interviewing remotely, or how is that working?
Yeah, thanks, Alexis. So it's actually a mix of both. So we have quite a bit of our interns that are interviewing remotely, of course. A few of them actually have gone in person to meet with some of the employers, of course, maintaining social distancing, all those good things. So it's a mixture of both, but primarily it has been the video interviews and the Zoom interviews. So we've been prepping our interns how to properly use Zoom, how to do a video interview. Some of them have never done video interview before. So just making sure that they are, locked and loaded for the interview and prepped as they're talking to employers.
That's great. And I think we've even had a couple of mock interviews virtually, which usually are done in person as well. So sounds like great practice for them. So my next question is here for Alissa. Alissa, how have you creatively reached those who don't have the technology that they need right now?
Creatively, it was okay. I guess I'm trying to think of what do you mean, like during recruitment kind of thing? Is that the?
Yeah, or just so that people become more aware of the services that Opportunity Junction has, but maybe they don't have access to a phone or computer at this time.
Well, unfortunately, if they don't have access to a phone or computer, it is a little hard to reach us. We've been trying to get the word out through every kind of digital means that we have. So I know you've been doing a ton of work on the social media side, Alexis. We've also been there are a lot of community meetings that have happened. And so there's a community cares meeting in East Contra Costa. We've presented there. We've presented to the Antioch Chamber of Commerce. So I think we've been trying to take advantage of all of the digital outreach possibilities. But when it comes to sort of the application process and reaching us, if people don't have a phone, don't have broadband access, that's a real concern for us. And it's something that we want to work with the community to address in terms of the lack of access to broadband in our area. I heard a story from one of my colleagues about the Brentwood School District that got a bunch of hotspots that either Verizon or AT&T, but the neighborhood that needed them didn't have that cell service. So I think we really need to think about broadband access throughout our community so that people can have access to everything that they need for their children and for themselves.
Great, thank you for that. And I'd like to ask a question for Alina. You've been working with our trainees, teaching them their computer skills, and you had to pivot the last class directly in the middle of their training, and now you're working with a brand new class completely online. How have the trainees been adapting to that online instruction?
Oh, you're muted. You're muted, Alina.
Believe it or not, they've actually adapted very well. We've had some bumps and bruises along the ways, like anything else that is new. We've had to learn the hard way about Zoom fatigue. And so we have made our curriculum now so that it's a little easier to be on Zoom. So our classes are a little shorter with a little bit more breaks. We're still delivering all of the same information to them. We've also started using other platforms where I make videos and post them on YouTube. I've also used a version of Blackboard or Canvas to help them be able to turn in their homeworks. So we have, and they have done a great job of converting us from being straight classroom to being Zoom.
That's wonderful. Thank you, Elena. And my next question is for Michelle. Michelle, back in May, you managed your team's first ever virtual recruitment for the incoming class of administrative careers trainees. What kind of solutions did you put in place to make that recruitment a success?
Well, first we had to be creative in our marketing. We had to change some things so that Zoom instruction looked fun, and ultimately it was fun for some people, but we had to change some things to attract more people to the Zoom learning environment. The other thing we did is we came together as a team and put our heads together to make sure that, and Alissa mentioned this earlier, how to just streamline the process so that it was easy to apply online. We didn't want it to appear difficult because people might just say, forget about it. We wanted to make sure that it looked easy to them, even if it was harder for us in the background. And it was really just more contact. We talked about, earlier, we talked about just how we build relationships during the interview process as well during the intake process. We want to make people feel welcome when they come in our doors. Well, they weren't coming in our doors now. They didn't have that option. So we had to make them feel warm and welcome as much as we could over Zoom. So there were a lot of tweaks that we had to make just to make sure that they felt comfortable still applying and getting instruction online.
And one of the things that I'm sort of thinking about is, I think about online learning as not being as sticky and not being, it's like that it's harder to do, which I've always thought. But I think maybe part of that is the massive online courses that are usually how online learning is developed. These are, in our case, we're still having those one-on-one relationships, those close relationships, and a lot of attention. And I think that relationship that's being developed is translating, very well to the online world right now.
Absolutely. Brianna, would you like to go into a little bit of detail about some volunteer opportunities that individuals could help with during this time where we're working remotely?
I know that we are always looking to offer more volunteer taught classes in our tech center. Although our tech center has been closed as far as public access to the building, we've been continuing to offer our classes for the Technology Center, Introduction to Computer Basics, ESL, remotely via Zoom. And so volunteers helping with that program would be amazing. And Michelle, can you talk a little bit about how you're using volunteers for any mock interviewing right now?
Yeah, we really have been. We really appreciate that so many people have reached out to offer mock interviews already remotely. It's been amazing to have that kind of support and for them to transition themselves into, instead of mocking in person, but actually agreeing to be online. Our events are generally about 4 hours, and they're willing to come and do that. So yeah, mock interviewing is definitely a volunteer opportunity for us. A resume review is another way that you can help us. And we also have had someone come in and volunteer for financial coaching. So if there are other workshops that can help our interns become work ready, that you think you can offer, please let me know and we can definitely talk about that.
Yeah, those are great. And I think another thing too, as Brianna and Michelle have mentioned some options, there's also always new options that you guys might think of that we haven't thought of before. So we're open to your creative ideas and would welcome those as well. Alissa, would you answer for us, is enrollment limited to individuals from Contra Costa County or other residents as well?
So right now, yes, we are limited to Contra Costa County, and it's more a function of our current funding streams and that kind of thing. What we're doing right now with this administrative careers training program is one of our strategic initiatives is to evaluate how effective the online program is compared to our in-person version. The staff members that you've spoken to are eager to get back in person, even though online has been good. Being in person, it's just not, it's lovely. But the question is whether we might be able to expand and scale to other locations if we were doing an online version that was as effective. And so we're evaluating both certification achievement in Microsoft Office specialist certifications, and then we're going to be also evaluating placement and retention outcomes. So right now, these guys are engaged in an experiment. And Elena, I think how many of our folks so far have gotten Microsoft Office specialist certifications completely online, working from home?
Currently 6. We have 4 more taking theirs on Friday.
Great. So we'll take a look at that, and then we would obviously have to find funding to scale in an online way. But I think this is an opportunity for us to be evaluating a new way of doing the intensive relationship-based thing. And that might allow us to go into other parts of Contra Costa County that we haven't been serving as well, might also allow us to go to neighboring counties that have high need and very little nonprofit infrastructure. I'm thinking San Joaquin County, I'm thinking Solano County or something like that.
Alissa, our technology center has always served a slightly larger, broader population, not as limited to Contra Costa County, and there is a possibility for our basic computer basis classes to have people enroll in them, not limited to Contra Costa County. I think we had an applicant last week from Minnesota, maybe, like someplace out of state. So there is a little more flexibility with our shorter term evening technology center classes.
That's right. And I got to say, it was really funny. All credit to the quality of those teachers, because I saw a $25 donation come in from Florida, and I was like, wow, what's that about? I looked up the name, and she was taking one of our evening technology center classes. So that was lovely.
Yeah, that's wonderful. And this is a great question that just came in, asking, did anyone talk about the types of jobs that our clients are currently securing during this time? I don't know, Michelle, would you like to talk a little bit about that?
Sure. The ACT trains individuals for administrative jobs. So we've had folks, our first person who got a job working for Alameda County, and we have, I believe, all except one have gone into some administrative fields. So whether it's office administrator, office assistant, those are the types of jobs my program is getting. I don't know if Sean, you want to speak to some of the other jobs that programs are placing, or Brianna.
Well, I just want to say that our average ACT starting wage in this pandemic is over $19 an hour. And that is significantly higher than our average placement wage for this program last fiscal year. So we had people getting paid anywhere from $16.75 on the low end to over $25 an hour in the jobs they're being hired for right now.
Also, I'd like to mention, Michelle, so we had 12 people. So when we went into shelter in place, we had 19 trainees. Some of them had issues with childcare. Some of them had issues with broadband. We graduated 12. How many of those 12 have now left with jobs since they finished since they graduated at the end of May?
Definitely over half, so 7 total.
Okay.
Who of those 12, and then we had 1 to get a job from the next class. She was pretty quick, and she obtained employment even before training was over. Okay. So a total of 8 folks we've placed in jobs since the pandemic.
That's wonderful. And I have a question for Patty as well. We have our administrative careers training program, but we also have our career counseling and coaching. And Patty, I was wondering if you could tell me a little bit more about how you're continuing to be successful with our online career coaching.
Thanks, Alexis. Yeah, we have moved everything to Zoom, just like the rest of the world, right? And so we are providing services to our clients one-on-one via Zoom, and adding that extra layer of teaching them, educating them on how to do things virtually, like interviewing and other, just navigating the Zoom world. Our career counselors are also providing a job seekers club for our clients. So they're logging in weekly, and they're learning about how to interview, how to prepare for an interview, how to job search, a variety of different other topics on job seeking.
Wonderful, thank you. Do we have any other questions from the audience? I think I've gotten through all of them. Please let me know if I've missed your question. Are class members still getting food assistance during this time?
So
go ahead.
Well, we do Loaves and Fishes, and the food bank, they do still provide food. So we've shared with our students where they can go to get the food assistance. We no longer offer it at Opportunity Junction, but there are various locations that are convenient for them to go pick up food. We also offer supportive services such as Safeway gift cards, Target gift cards, if they do need additional assistance. So there still is food assistance available.
Great. We haven't mentioned anything about our healthcare career pathways program. I just want to mention the CNA class that was in the middle of training when we went into shelter in place, had a little bit of a harder time because they had to get approval from the state in order to continue online classes and to move their clinicals to outdoors with dummies instead of indoors with actual human beings. They did eventually do that. That class has graduated, and I'm not sure, I apologize, I don't have the employment outcomes yet for that group, but I think there's a great deal of need for certified nursing assistants right now. I think we recognize that. And a number of those folks actually got placed early in the pandemic into home health care just to tide them over until they could finish their certified nursing assistant. And Sean did a lot of work on connecting the employer with our folks there.
Yeah, we had lots of folks enter employment prior to the completion of their CNA training because they were allowed to be hired at a skilled nursing facility if they had completed a certain percentage of their training. So during that break, Erica and Sean helped, I had 9 CNA participants entering their first job since we've been in shelter in place. And then we're still waiting for them to be able to take their certification test. But during that clinical simulation, Loaves and Fishes continue to partner with us, and they brought lunch to Mount Diablo Adult Education site to provide other food supports for the class that was able to be in person.
All right. Well, if that's it, then thank you so much for your support. Thanks so much for being a part of this work.